3, 2, 1, and we're back, Julie. It is March the 14th. Birthday week is finally over.
Indeed.
It only took us 5 decades to get to birthday week. Oh, hold on. Sorry.
No slippage now.
Okay, sorry. I forgot. You are not your real age. You're now 35. Exactly. Forever.
That's
okay.
Fine with me.
I'm clear on that. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Well, when we went to that little impromptu beach gathering last night, and I was telling everyone to celebrate Julie's 35th birthday, not a single person looked at you funny.
I know. Which, there you go. I'm sticking with it.
Why not? Exactly. I'm not going to go as far as say his age is a state of mind, but you know what? If you're going to have a state of mind, it's probably one to have that you maybe are younger than you genealogically are. Now, that, of course, depends on your actual age.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. Well, I remember when you and I got into real estate, and we were in our early 20s, one of the questions we wanted to avoid the most is, how old are you?
Yeah, that's true. Well, that could be because we both look like we're about 12, but
yeah. Well, I mean, we always used to say we're in our 20s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you bring up a good point, and it does come up from time to time, both on, I think it came up once on the Clubhouse sessions a week or two ago, and it comes up in Premier Coaching that how many people don't talk about real estate because they live in fear of some kind of little micro objection, and I don't want to make this, we didn't do our disclaimer. This is the Sunday show. We talk about whatever we want. But isn't it interesting that sometimes people won't open their mouths because they've got this tiny little thing stuck in their head. Somebody's going to ask me how old I am, or somebody's going to ask me how many homes that I've sold over a certain price range or a certain neighborhood, or any of those things, so you just have to work on your scripting and build that confidence.
Yeah, it's like the old question, how long have you been in real estate? And, the answer is they're not asking you for an exact analytical drill down, the exact date you got your real estate license. Julie and I bought our first house. We were still in college, and it's way before we were in real estate. So the question would be, how long were you in real estate? And what we would say when we were first selling real estate, we'd say we bought our first investment property when we were 22 and 23. So, or 21 and 22 or whatever age it was.
And then you ask a question. You don't just let it linger.
Right. And then you pivot and ask the question. So, yeah, I mean, we just kind of meandered in that direction. But as you said, this is Sunday. And on Sunday, we do some meandering. There's no rigid schedule or whatnot. But I'll tell you what I was thinking about right as I was hitting the record button. As I was thinking about, I wonder, like, you and I don't struggle anymore knowing that the antivirus software that's supposed to be running in your head at all times as a small business owner, because we've been small business owners for all of our lives, but we've accepted it as normal, that there is no turning it off. And I see a lot of people that struggle with that. They think that there's somehow supposed to be like a complete shut off of all business thought, and then a complete turn on of thoughts of your family or whatever. Yeah. It doesn't work like that. I think not just small business owners, but business owners in general. I guarantee you that Elon Musk, when he's watching rockets launch, is thinking about why he can't get Teslas to truly be autonomous. I guarantee you all those thoughts are going on simultaneously. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the same thing that happens with all business owners. So I guess I'm only mentioning that because all of you need to realize that it's normal for you to feel almost obsessed about the details in your business pretty much all the time. And if you're not thinking like that, or if you're fighting thinking like that, you're probably not going to succeed, because you really do have to be obsessed. And it's not, it's not passionate. Passion is, obsession is something that doesn't go away. Passion is something that comes and goes. For example, I'm passionate about helping people list their homes. Well, I mean, that's going to last for the total amount of time it takes for you to get the listing contract signed. And then you're back doing things in real estate that you're probably not that passionate about. Well, so don't pursue that feeling of passion. I really like the word obsession and again, obsession can go too far and you could become, a little bit loopy, but even loopy sometimes when you're trying to be successful in business is necessary.
Sometimes it's required even.
It is. And in a market like this where there's so many opportunities, when there's an abundance of things that are pulling you in so many different directions, the one thing you've got to be obsessed about more than others, if you want to choose one, is profit. And it's such a hard thing for people to understand, and you and I were blessed in that when we got into real estate, we had one clear vision. I'm not saying we stuck to it for, 30 years, but we definitely had one clear vision in real estate, which was to have enough paid off rental properties that we could live off our cash flow from the rental properties, right? Mm-hmm. Now we went in some, we had to have some course directions and corrections along the way, but the reality of it was that always stayed true. And by the time I was 41 and you were 40, we'd accomplished that goal. And that was for Julie, that's going to happen in the next 5 years. But for me, that was 15 years ago. Or no, not 15. How old am I? That was 10 years ago. Yeah. 41, 51.
Yeah.
I'm 51.
16, but.
What?
Yeah.
41 to 51.
Oh, 41. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're thinking
messing with the math.
You're thinking of your new.
Yeah.
You're thinking of your new age. Yeah.
Indeed.
Right.
No. Well, but how did we do it? We did it largely the same way that we teach you guys. We used a guaranteed home sale. You guys have instant offers you can work with. And we kept, I think for the most part, we kept that North Star of that was the one very specific goal was that we were, not just living from commission to commission, but it was what we were doing with the commission to then build our rental portfolio.
But let's be honest, though. We were brutal with ourselves to accomplish the goal of having that, being able to be rich, where your money works for you, no longer work for your money. No, I'm going to use that word.
Okay.
Don't look for
I was going to say disciplined, but
no, we were brutal.
Yeah,
we were, because what we do is most people would never do. First of all, the dozens of rental properties that we were accumulating, we weren't financing most of them. We were paying cash for most of them. And hardly anybody would do that. And you could come up with, frankly, a very good argument why you'd want to finance things. But our definition of rich was where our money was working for us. We no longer had to work for money. In order to do that, we had to have a paid-off rental property. And with that paid-off rental property, then we had, we wanted to maximize the return on investment so that we could live off that, the cash flow. And if you just look at the prices that were originally paid for our rental properties, we've done incredibly well. If you look out for what they're worth now, we're doing incredibly bad. We have rental properties that we bought for, $100,000 that are now worth $300,000. So if you look at the rate of return we're getting on the $300,000, versus what we paid, then it's like we're the worst investors ever.
Yeah.
But
fortunately, we've since diversified. But But I think the original point was to not worry so much about turning your business on and turning your business off. And seeking, we've talked before about, not thinking that there's an ultimate balance to life and that you're either in personal or you're in business. I think, you and I come up with some great podcast topics on our walks, which are supposed to be personal, right?
You're moving away from what I really want, what I'm really trying to convey. Mm-hmm. And because I want to drill down even more on that word brutal.
Okay.
Because for us to do what we did with regards to saving up the money to buy those rental properties that we've done consistently for 30 years.
Right.
Well, we still have been buying them, really.
Yeah.
But for us to do that, especially when we were coming up, before we were, deca millionaires on up, okay? When we were not even millionaires and we were forcing ourselves to save up $100,000 to buy a rental property or something. Yeah. You want to turn that off?
It is. I don't know why I did that. That's weird.
Yeah. There you go. Probably because there's a tsunami coming.
Probably.
We got to go to the third floor.
Check your dings.
Yeah. Well, so that was really hard. And we had to sacrifice a ton.
Well, especially, some of our listeners are so blessed to have a huge average sale price. We had to crank out a lot of transactions with a lot of discipline.
So for us to accomplish the goal of basically we wanted to have $25,000 a month coming in passively from paid off rental properties, we knew we had to have around 25 to 30 paid off rental properties. And then when we started selling real estate, we gave ourselves a certain amount of time to accomplish it. And again, we didn't always stay true to it, but one of the things we would do is we would try to keep ourselves always in contract on something where we'd be forced to save the money to buy the property. And if that, and guys, trust me when I tell you that was not easy. It meant Julie and I, for most of our marriage, had to live far below our means. It means that we didn't go on vacations. It means that when you were on a cruise ship, and whatever, Julie and I were working, taking listings. It means I remember many, many holidays where you and I were taking listings, showing houses, writing contracts because we were staying true to that North Star.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by brutal.
I have some pretty specific memories. Let's say I'll just share one little snippet. I don't know if you remember this, but we were having the Christmas Eve party at our house in Linworth. And a neighbor comes down the street and mentioned that perhaps the vacant listing might have some trouble. And in fact, we told the sellers to shut off to winterize. They went out of town. There was a cold snap, and the pipes burst, and there was a frozen avalanche out the front door. That was Christmas Eve.
That was our listing? Was that our listing?
Yeah, and we called them, and they're like, well, we thought we winterized it. I'm like, well, I hope your homeowner's insurance is caught up. And they ended up rehabbing it. But, we were working is the point. I remember going on a listing appointment on Easter with you. I mean, I remember going on price reductions when, we wanted to be doing something else. But you do what you have to do when you don't want to do it, and you try and do it at the highest level that you can to get the results that you're striving for.
Well, so I think to anybody who's trying to accomplish something that's extraordinary in their lives, like if you wanted to get in really, I mean, my kind of sort of halfway serious joke is that I want to basically be able to replace Daniel Craig as the next James Bond.
You're going to work on that. You're not that far off.
Well, so way far off.
But it takes work.
I'd have to put on probably like 15 or 20 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, but you have one advantage, which is you're the same height.
Yeah.
And you're roughly the same age.
No, he's older than me.
I think he is maybe 3 or 4 years older. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
But you're close. You got a good start.
Yeah, I have gotten started. Yep. But see, now you're already riding my butt about it.
Exactly. That's what we do with each other, isn't it?
Well, but like in order to do that, you have to discipline yourself to go to the gym twice a day. You're going to have to, eat just the whole lifestyle thing of going about, getting in that kind of physical condition is extraordinary. Mm-hmm. But that's what it takes to do something extraordinary. You have to be brutal with yourself. Mm-hmm. It was kind of funny. The reason that Daniel Craig didn't want to play James Bond again is his number one reason was he didn't want to have to get in that good a physical shape again. I can totally relate to that. It's got to be a ton of work. Yeah. It basically becomes his job. Right.
To achieve that.
It's a ton of work and it's a ton of sacrifice. Mm-hmm. But again, I'm relating this in some loose way to what we did financially, what we did professionally. Mm-hmm. And everything worth having in life comes on the other side of long periods of doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. And that's really again, this Sunday show is all about defragging and preparing for the week. And you and I were creating our to-do lists, and we have a lot of things that are, happening the next 60 days that have hard due dates. And we're managing projects and managing people who are managing projects. And we're making slide decks and
lots of
presentations and outlines and Zoom calls. We're doing a ton of things in EXP world.
Facebook Live.
Right. Podcasts, Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget the 4 books we're working on.
You forgot the clubhouses every morning.
Oh, yes. And the clubhouse every morning.
Right.
Yeah. So we're a little busy.
So, but that's where it's supposed to be. Now, here's the funny part. And this is the part, frankly, guys, maybe some of you can help Julie and I work through our psychology on this. But we're at the point financially where we don't have to do all of this. But where it's actually becoming the burden of, well, first of all, many of the things we just rattled off are probably 80% enjoyable for us to do. Would you say that's true?
Mm-hmm. Most of the time.
Let's think about that. 50%.
Yeah.
50%. Yeah. But it's not like
a grind.
It's not like prospecting. Prospecting was like 10% enjoyable.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So we're moving in the right direction.
Which, by the way, people that are not in love with prospecting, that's okay. That's normal.
It's supposed to suck.
It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. It just means you have to accept how it is.
Right. It gets you the results the quickest. That's the reason you want to do it. Yeah. But it's like, but here's the thing that's kind of fascinating. I mean, because I just had a birthday and I'm thinking about this, right? So at what point? So how do I say this? I always have to think how what I say on this podcast sounds, because I don't want to sound aloof. Right. I don't want to sound like I'm some sort of rich asshole.
You don't want to water it down to the point where you're not making the point, though.
It's important for them to know that where you and I, many of them the same way, right? Mm-hmm. They're ascending in their own ways, but you and I came from less than nothing, and we've gotten to where we are. And it's important that for me, this is cathartic. That's what the Sunday show is all about. But really, it's for us to get to where we've gotten, we had to do long periods of time, and this was the reason I talked about rental properties, of doing what we didn't want to do and we didn't want to do at the highest level. And I think in my younger brain, I probably thought there was a point when that stopped, but now I realize at 51, and you're 35 again for the 15th time, that never stops.
I would agree with you on that. I remember the first time we sold our 100th house, I kind of thought, I didn't really know what I thought, but I thought that would be like opening the door for some huge thing.
You mean the first time we sold 100 houses in a year, which was our first year?
Yeah, but we used to joke that, when you do that, Ed McMahon doesn't just show up on your doorstep and hand you a giant check. Life goes on, and now you got to go do 101, 102.
Well, but also
different milestones.
The other funny thing was I remember when we were kids, we always thought, well, when we're making a lot of money, we heard that rich people don't pay taxes, right?
Right.
All that bullshit. Yeah. And I remember our first year in business, when we were in our early 20s, basically, we earned over, it was $300,000. And that was more money than certainly, your parents were school teachers. And I think the most my dad ever earned from one of his businesses was like 10th of that, truthfully, less than 40 grand a year. But I remember thinking, okay, now that we're rich or now that we're
Right.
making a lot of money, there's some sort of secret handshake where, you said Ed McMahon or whatever, that's going to somehow tell us how to, oh, nope, does not work that way. Total bullshit. We are paying taxes out the yin yang.
Yeah.
That never changes. So for those of you who are in your, formidable years of building your wealth, remember what we tell you, unless you are doing some of the, let's just say, more adventurous things like moving to Puerto Rico, you're going to be paying taxes, and you better not think that there's a way to shortcut the paying of taxes when you're in the mainland. And rental properties, by the way, is one of the best ways to mitigate, if you want to call it that, some of your federal taxes and your state taxes. So rental properties, you buy rental properties for the appreciation, the depreciation, and the cash flow, right? But the depreciation aspect on the rental properties is a real home run, assuming you qualify for all the tax benefits. So that in itself is a great reason to buy rental properties. And that's one of the main reasons we did it as well. But here's the point I was trying to make is that, and maybe when you're finally 50, okay, maybe you'll have this thought too. But really what happens is giving yourself permission to somehow start doing less of what you want to do, less of what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level, right?
Yeah.
So you start to give yourself permission. I'll tell you from a personal perspective, I did that last year. So one of the things I didn't want to do anymore is I didn't want to have 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 coaching calls anymore.
You mean per day?
Per day, yeah. And so you and I for a long time were doing 10 plus per day.
Well, we did 15 a day for a while.
Yeah, and I didn't want to do that anymore. And so by not doing it anymore, that was my little 50th birthday to my last year. And and I'm sticking with it too. And so but the thing is, even at that point, I didn't even need to be working that hard. It's just because people wanted me to coach them, and I was in the pattern and the behavioral, lifestyle of that sort of grinding it out every day. But again, as we meet more and more wealthy people living here in Puerto Rico and Dorado, which I know for a lot of you guys don't know what I'm talking about, rich people, Puerto Rico. Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
What?
There are. Yeah, Puerto Rico. Just Google Puerto Rico, Dorado, Puerto Rico, Ritz-Carlton, Puerto Rico, and then Google Puerto Rico Acts 60. There are so many amazing business owners and entrepreneurs that are moving down here that it's extraordinary. And every time we go out, we trip over, I'll tell you what, there's an avalanche of new people moving here. Julie and I went down to the beach last night with Zoe, and we just stumbled across new family after new family after new family, and they're all in different things. A lot of guys are, they claim to be hedge fund guys, or they're different types of industries that just are
financial stuff.
Mostly financial stuff, I would say, but a lot of them are also in just all kinds of marketing things. There's, of course, the Bitcoin contingency down here. There's a lot of famous people. There's a whole bunch of these famous influencer types that are moving down here. So, yeah, there's a lot of that. And when we talk to those people, it's really fascinating that, and some of them, one of the guys that we're friends with is probably at least a billionaire. And we see him, 3-4 times a week. And he still is working. He still is, attending his daily Zooms and doing all the things.
His antivirus software is going all the time. You can almost see the gears working in his brain.
Meaning that he's always thinking about the business, even though he's so far beyond having to think about it. And is it because he doesn't know how to break the pattern? No, he probably does. He just doesn't want to. And so I guess the reason I'm sharing all this with you is that there is no point at which point you will not want to be productive and make a contribution. And if you ever get to the point where you think you could be complacent, it's literally going to be followed shortly thereafter by a mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, and then physical death. And I know that sounds dramatic, but it is true. And so that's the thing that's fascinating that I wish I would have known probably 25 years ago, is that I'll always want to be in some sort of business. You can call it whatever you want to. Contribution
some way or another.
Contribution. And then there's it, like, you could even argue that, well, that's just how my ego is wanting to have myself be seen. Yeah, so what?
I kind of think that to not do that and to not contribute kind of is an expression of ego too. I mean, in a way, if you can help other people and you know how to do it, at a high level, and you just decide not to one day. But everybody's different on that, but I don't know. I'd look at it differently, I think.
So I met a new guy on the beach yesterday who just moved here from LA, and he's a hedge fund guy. Hopefully he's not listening. I won't mention his name. And he was LA guy. Remember, that's all you need to know. And so he was rattling off all of these different non-profit investment type things. And he was used to talking with other LA people, and he was like virtue signaling to me, if you guys know what that term means. And he assumed that I thought and acted and wanted to communicate like him, which I didn't, don't, and won't, okay? And it was fascinating for me to watch him struggle with the fact that it's okay to be profit motivated.
Yeah.
And he felt, he was thinking that if he had shown that he was profit motivated, that he somehow would have been judged in a negative light in my mind because he thought I was looking through life through the same filters as him.
Well, remember, he hasn't lived here for very long.
Right.
He hasn't realized that it's okay to talk about stuff like profit.
Well, but let's talk about that. So
I thought that was interesting too, and he wasn't even super overt about it, but you and I are kind of tuned into what the language is on those things. Yeah. And it was very interesting because
and I pointed
that
out
kind
to
of
him,
stuck out because we don't get that so much.
And I pointed out to him.
Yeah.
And you got a little frustrated. You were a little mad at me for pointing it out.
Well,
I heard.
I mean,
you thought he was being rude.
He's a pretty new friend.
Yeah. So, I
thought maybe you would have worked that into a conversation 3 or 4. But you were right, and he took it just fine.
But do you remember after that he started talking like a normal human?
Yes. And then it's like you gave him permission to be really
a normal human. And then he had these 2 little beautiful girls, and then he started to describe how, what was the term he used? He raised them to be gender
neutral or something.
Gender non-binary. I don't even know what the hell it was. And then he stopped himself. He started laughing. And he goes, "I just did it again, didn't I? I just virtue signaled again." And I go, "Yeah, you did. You mean you raised a girl to let the little girl be a little girl? Is that what you're trying to say?"
I know. I'm like, you see how she's like wearing a dress and playing with Barbies, right?
Yeah, with our daughter who was raised, they kind of do that a lot of times. Pretty much all the time naturally. It's not because you know
nature.
Yeah, it's nature. It's it is what it is. But so those conversations are kind of fascinating to me because I see people now. He's 37, but I see people that struggle, that see a conflict with a profit motive.
Yeah,
and I've never seen that. And this is the simple reason why I've never had a conflict with being profit motivated.
No, you haven't
ever, and because I can't make a profit unless I'm helping people.
Yes, but which seems like such an apparent point, right?
Obvious.
And yet people don't naturally go to that because there's all this other pollution in how you're supposed to think. And gosh, you don't want to talk about that in front of somebody. I think it's gotten confusing for people.
Don't talk about it. Drill down on it.
Okay. So I think, well, we've talked about this a little bit before where you're not brought up to think that it's okay to talk about money or profit or credit or your success, put it all into that same bucket, if you will, and so people tread so lightly on it, which I can understand, like not talking about it at all, but like talking sort of down or to the side of it is the manifestation of not being comfortable with it.
So I don't want to. I would prefer, Julie, not to talk about that, nor would I prefer to talk about money guilt, nor would I prefer to talk about lack of financial training and all those things. Because that's normal. That's the normal jab for talking about this. What I want to do is I want to cut right to the point that the whole point, that the reason capitalism has worked and the reason being profit motivated works, and it does not have to be more complicated than that, because you can't, and I'm going to say this and just stay focused if you don't mind. Just let's direct it on this, because this is the thought that, I'm now officially, evidently 16 years older than you. So listening.
That's okay. I'm listening.
Listening to your somewhat,
right.
16 years older than your older husband.
Yeah.
So here's what clears the air faster than all people's confusions about making money.
Okay.
If you do not have the lifestyle you want, the things you want, the food in your belly that you want, the shoes on your feet that you want, the house that you want, the health that you want, if you do not have certainly the money that you want, the financial security that you want, if you do not have all of those things in abundance, in an extreme amount of abundance, it's simply for the fact that you have yet to learn how to help enough other people accomplish their goals. There is a direct correlation between the number of people you help accomplish their goals, the number of people you help solve problems, and in many cases it's help them make money or help them be successful. Those are solving people's problems. Or helping someone buy or sell a house. Those are solving people's problems. Whatever, right? The number of people that you have helped along their path, that is the mirror to the abundance that you'll experience or the lack of abundance you'll experience in your life.
It's a direct ratio.
It is a direct, undeniable. Now, if you're smart and you happen to get involved in something like EXP with a revenue share, then it's an exponential ratio. because with your revenue share, you have helped. Like I sponsor Julie at EXP, and then Julie goes sponsors Bob, and Bob sponsors Sally, and Sally sponsors 10 people. Well, just because I had this one conversation with Julie, all of a sudden my influence or my ability to get benefit from that is not one-on-one. It's one on millions, if not thousands, right?
Yes.
And so those are the types.
Which is also exactly what you're saying, because by sponsoring somebody, you are helping them.
Right.
You're helping them get into and stay in production. You're helping them understand how to sponsor other people. You're helping, you are contributing. It's just that it's exponential how that's set up.
So one of our friends down there who, according to, Bloomberg, he's a billionaire, right? Okay. And we talked to him,
Yep.
I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So and he's a big hedge fund guy, supposedly the 6th largest hedge funds in the world, or maybe it was number 1. I don't remember. But anyway, so you would think, and this guy is, obviously very wealthy. He has all the things that you'd think a wealthy person would have, the jets, the yachts, the cars, and, the whole thing. Super cool, super chill, totally, very competitive. You can just feel his competitive vibe when you're around him.
But in a positive way.
Yeah, and he's so easy to talk to, so nice, not a stuffy asshole at all, frankly.
Not at all.
I love talking to him. I love listening. Actually, I don't love talking to him as much as I love listening to him talk to other people.
Yeah.
Yesterday, guys, I'll just tell you this was funny. So one of the, so there's these 3 financial guys, and the one whose name was Bob, and then there was, the guy I'm talking about, and this other guy's name was Steve. I'm making up their names. And so, Bob and Steve knew who this guy was.
Let's call him Henry.
They knew who Henry was. Like they knew who he was professionally, by reputation. And both of these guys had had introduced themselves to me in the past months, weeks, years, whatever, as being hedge fund guys. So I thought, well, I'll just introduce my 2 other friends, and then I'll help everyone make friends, And so I brought all these, I brought Bob and Steve by to meet Henry, and Henry's standing in the middle, and Bob and Steve they come, from, and I said, Henry, this is Bob and Steve. They're also in the hedge fund world. And what was hilarious is how fast Bob and Steve basically completely, melted at me referring to them or explaining to Henry that these are hedge fund guys, which is what they had called themselves to me previously. And because they knew they were in the presence of greatness, and watching them immediately sort of, well, we do a little investing here and there and whatever.
That is funny.
Yeah, it was funny. And I just couldn't, I stopped to laugh. I said, hold on. I thought you guys were in the hedge fund world. And they say, well, not like Henry's in the hedge fund world. And it was so funny to see the immediate explosion of ego right in front of me. It was like 2 rocket ships just going off, going nowhere. But anyway, that was funny.
Yeah, and all of them are very successful in their own right. It's just that it highlights that there's levels to everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And their immense respect for him, for Henry,
Well,
but it's interesting.
But let's stick with Henry. That's not his real name. So Henry has this big hedge fund. Mm-hmm. And you'd think, listeners who hadn't really put a lot of mental horsepower into thinking about this point, which, by the way, we figured this out along the way. So by Julie and I having this convo, hopefully we're, lessening your learning curve. Or if you're our age or older and you still are conflicted with money, maybe what we're doing is helping, cut those mooring lines finally. Those are the lines that keep a boat tied to the dock, right? So he is a billionaire many, many times over because he's helped millions, if not tens of millions of people. Oh, Tim, how can that possibly be true? Because when he's made an investment advice, when he is, for example, I'll make up one of his institutional, one of his large scale investors. Let's say it's the firefighters fund of, Chicago or something. I don't know. And, which a lot of times the big hedge funds, that's who they end up investing their money for. And so he's helping all those firefighters, the firefighters' families, the firefighters' grandchildren, the grandchildren's grandchildren. He's ensuring that the asset of the underlying asset that makes it so that they can actually have pensions is existing not just now, but for generations from now. So does he ever actually talk with any of the firefighters, let alone the progeny that comes thereafter that gets the benefit of the pensions? No. But he is helping, potentially tens of millions of people. Thus, he is a billionaire. I look at Glenn Sanford, frankly. Mm-hmm. He's the founder, in essence, of EXP. Mm-hmm. Well, he is the founder.
Yeah.
And so he's worth, billions of dollars. And back in 2007, and there's videos on YouTube where he's, recollecting about this, he was flat broke, basically. Yeah. And in that amount of time, since 2007, 2008, and now, he's become one of the wealthiest men on planet Earth. Seriously.
I know, 14 years, that's it.
14 years, and now he's worth, it's billions of dollars from EXPI, from, And I just think about that. Well, some of you would look at that and say, "Oh, no man needs that much money. That's so much." Well, look what he's done. Look what he's created. Right. So far there's 50,000 agents now who all have an opportunity at revenue share. EXP is creating business opportunities for agents all over the United States, Canada, and a whole bunch of other countries now. Look what he's creating. Look at the good he's put into the world. And of course, he's going to get an exponential return on that investment because he's not doing it one-on-one. He's not listing one house and then calling it done. He's figured out a way to do something at a much, much larger scale. But the moral of the story is don't be conflicted with profit motivation. Don't think that, for example, people like Glenn and all these other people aren't going to be, and that's the other thing that's fascinating to me in this era that we live in, that somehow there's this belief that billionaires aren't able to put their money into action at a more efficient way than, say, for example, the government. And it's absolutely not true. Yeah. What these guys talk about primarily when we run into them around our property is what other businesses they can get involved in, what other investments they can make. And a lot of times they are charitable investments. That's probably the number one thing people talk about. Different things, especially in Puerto Rico, different things that people can do to, tons of things.
Very, very charitable. So many different opportunities here for sure.
Yeah, and it's fun. I mean, there was a big group of us that went and picked up, we didn't do it yet, but we did it locally, who went and picked up trash on a beach.
Yeah, and that happens every weekend.
And I was just thinking how funny it is when people drive by seeing all these people picking up trash on the beach that they don't realize that some of those people are, business leaders and thought leaders in the world.
It's funny, have any idea.
But we're all doing it, And there's a huge Satos problem, which means stray dog problem here, for example. And guess what? A lot of these people that came to Puerto Rico, they pay for these stray dogs to be put on oftentimes chartered private jets and sometimes their own private jets. And they fly these stray dogs all over North America.
Thousands of them.
Yeah, on a regular basis.
Every single week there's like between 100 and 200 just on the one organization that I'm involved with.
Yep.
But yeah, we've got pilots for pups. We've got all these things.
And so what's the local government solution to Satos? Satos is Spanish for stray dogs, basically. It's to kill them. And so what these people are doing is they're taking the dogs and they're taking them to North America where, because of COVID, there's not any pets for adoptions. Yeah. And that's what they're doing.
And by the time they land, every single one of them is adopted.
And that's the thing that
awesome.
I didn't know when you and I were coming up, right? Mm-hmm. But really, if you want to, the brightest minds in the world, generally speaking, are also the most generous.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And that's very, very consistent. And if you allow those people to then use those their creative energies and their desire to make contributions, which is really, those two values are predicated on, basically being able to build great wealth. If you don't sincerely love people, if you don't want to make a contribution, if you don't want to make people's lives better, in some differing percentages, if you don't have those three things as your main drivers, it does not matter how smart you are, how analytical you are. It does not matter how amazing you are with money or any of these other business ventures. If you are not coming from a true place of wanting to help other people, you might make money, but you're never going to become that wealthy for that long period of time because you're not tapping in to the thing that gives you the constant flow of energy, which is knowing you're helping people.
Yeah. And, I as you were talking, I was thinking that some of our most successful coaching clients over the years got that point and actually combined the thing that they wanted to be charitable about. Maybe that's, buy or sell with me, adopt a pet for free. Maybe it's, children's charities. Maybe it's, choose your charity. And they combined that with their real estate practice. They did some kind of promotions with that. They talked about that. And it's funny because our agents that have done that, it's like they become magically more comfortable talking about, transactional things. Right. It opens up that feeling of being of service. And then they get less weird about being in sales. So I just think it's interesting.
If you don't have a true profit motive, if you're confused about that, like let's make this really practical. Mm-hmm. I'll hear people all the time. They'll say, I formed a team or a brokerage because I want to help the agents in my office. I really enjoy, and like they're doing it at their own cost. They're breaking one of Harris rules, which is put your own mask on first. Why are they doing it? So their fulfillment, or at least their virtue signaling, that's what they're doing. They're not willing to say the point of me having a brokerage or business is to make profit, and more profit the better. And with that profit, I'm going to reinvest it into assets that produce passive income so that one day I can be rich where my money works for me and I don't have to work for my money, right? They don't want to say that. They don't want to put all those thoughts together because they're worried about being judged harshly for wanting to be profit motivated. Where I'll challenge you that if you're more profit motivated, you'll actually run all of your businesses more efficiently because you have something larger that's driving your ambitions, which is being financially free. And here's the thing I also didn't know. I suspected, truthfully, is that once you're at the point where you don't have to work for money anymore, where your money works for you, once you're actually there, and you are so much, at least I see this amongst some of our peers, especially here, frankly, there's so much more, we said generous, entrepreneurial. I hate using the word happy, but I'll say they're more in alignment with really who they always wanted to be as people.
Yeah.
But you can only have that sense of freedom once you're actually rich. And rich is another word. It's a taboo word, which we use intentionally because we want some of you guys to go, ew, rich people evil. Then we want you to think to yourself, well, why do I think that's true? Are rich people evil? And I'm here to tell you, having been a poor person, now being a rich person, rich people are not evil.
No.
But
I think mentally you've got to make the leap and replace, if you have an initial negative reaction to the word rich, remember that what rich really means is free.
Yeah, that's it.
It's freedom to make your own decisions, freedom to make your own choices, freedom to, give charitably, freedom to do what you want to do in life because you have done what you have to do in life.
Well, so that's one of the things I'm going to start doing. Well, I have started doing it already. But one of the things that being rich gives you is definitely the ability to do less of what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. And so I would say, going back to the original premise of what we were talking about today with regards to buying those rental properties and having it be brutal, because it was brutal oftentimes, right? You and I had a close date. We had a big deposit down. We'd have to come up with the money, cash in often cases, to buy, pay for that house. That means that we weren't doing a lot of the things that we could have otherwise done.
Sure.
In some cases, it was, doing when we had to do those things when we didn't want to do them. All right. That was, that was hard.
Yeah.
We okay, let's just make it really personal. We procrastinated starting our family because of that.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
We absolutely would have more kids probably.
Yeah.
If we had not made that sacrifice.
Yeah, Zoe's like 10, she's...
It's like having 10 kids in one body, though.
Are we allowed to say that?
She made up for it.
Yeah, exactly. But, we're blessed that way for sure, right? Yeah. But so the moral of the story is that rich, by the way, your simple definition, again, Harris Rules number 4, I think. By the way, I keep on talking about Harris Rules. Guys, get our book. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. It's at airports. It's everywhere for sale. It's hopefully going to be the best-selling real estate book. Not in all genres, but specifically pertaining to real estate agents, business building ideas and things of that nature. The only one I think that's going to probably rival us is going to be Gary Keller's original book, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, or Millionaire Real Estate Agent. But his book's been out for 30 years. And so I see a lot of people gravitating towards our book and buying the same book at the same time. When you're checking out with our book and it says purchasers who bought Harris Rules also like this book, and they flash that original MRE book, that tells me we're on the right track, frankly.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And it'll pop up Jeb Blunt's book, too, The Fanatical Prospecting.
Which is another great book.
That's a good club. That's a good club to be
I like it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so the point of it is would I have done anything differently? Would you have done anything differently?
Well, EXP wasn't around back then.
Right. And so,
had it been, I think we would have followed that path.
Yeah, that's the thing that's really, it's like, I feel happy about it, but at the same time, I feel a little bit like, because you can't get all those years back. You can't get all that sacrifice back.
No, but, when you make that decision today, you won't be saying that 2 years from now. I mean, you still got to pull that trigger.
But here's also the thing, because I had these conversations. Let's say you're a 50-year-old man or woman somewhere out there in the world listening to us right now, and you didn't accumulate any rental properties. You have no net worth, and you're listening to us thinking, well, they've got a bunch of rental properties and good for them. But here's what we're trying to tell you is that it's not just rental properties, by the way. As Julie said, we diversified big time. But in retrospect, if we had to do it all over again, well, here, let me just put it this way. We're making more income per month from our EXP revenue share than we did after all those, the sacrifice and all those rental properties after all those decades.
I know. And for our listeners, it's quite a bit more challenging for them.
Like way more.
Yeah.
Like more than twice as much.
Yes.
Right. And we're not supposed to talk about that. But the moral of the story is if you guys are getting ready to get started and form your big financial future, or if you're trying to look for a way to make up for lost ground, you got to look at EXP's revenue share model. It is phenomenal. It's the thing that you've been looking for that you haven't quite known how to even, express that you're searching for it. So even if you're the most virtue signaling, profit or charity minded, non-profit focused person in the world, you want more than anything is to never have to worry about money again. Because never having to worry about money, being financially free, what that creates for you ultimately is freedom of your soul. And I'm not being spiritual here, guys. I'm just being practical.
Yeah.
Would you think the same about politics? Would you think the same about everything, anything? Name one thing you think would stay the same in where you live, how you live, people you hang out with, all that, if you were basically completely financially free. If you're completely financially free and that gorilla was finally off your back, you would, every aspect. Now, I'm not saying you'd move away from your family, and I'm not, suggesting anything dramatic like that. But if you were financially free, would you still stay in the same town you were living in? Would you, believe the same things you believed with regards to politics and with regards to societal things that are, abnormal right now or maybe normal right now? I don't know. Would you believe those things? You wouldn't. A lot of the decisions you make are based on your need to feel like you're part of a group, and the reason that the group is there is to protect you. Like it's a tribal thing. And if you're, working and have a paycheck job and have consistent pay coming in, and if that pay weren't coming in, you would lose everything you have. In order for you to, reinforce that consistent income, you're maybe being put on pressures to live in a certain town. And I mean, when Julie and I were selling real estate, when people would come work for the Limited, those people were given overt pressure to live where we were selling real estate, because the guy who owned Limited, Victoria's Secret, Bath and Body Works, whatever, he developed the area that we sold real estate in. So these reloading employees oftentimes were making huge money. Never hardly wanted to come to Columbus, Ohio.
No, it was so funny when we would find out we were going to handle a relocation client.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh no, they're coming in February.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they're coming like from Atlanta or Miami or someplace.
Or like LA or,
or pray for sunshine that day.
Or like from the Upper East Side in New York or whatever, and they're flying to Columbus, Ohio. And it's just exactly like,
like, how long do I have to be here?
Like they put on the happy face for like 3 seconds, and then it was like, oh my gosh. And then the funny part is that a lot of them were executives and sort of on their way to being bosses at these all these companies, and they were resentful of having to go there. They were resentful of having to give up their friends and their lifestyle in the town that they were moving from. They didn't want to live in Columbus, Ohio, no matter how nicely gilded New Albany was. They still didn't want to live there for the most part. And that was a good lesson, really a good lesson, because it really drove home the fact that more income doesn't necessarily make you happier. Like these people in some cases are making, and this is back in the 90s, they were making, $500, $600, $1 million. Some of them with bonuses were making over $1 million. I'll tell you guys a funny story, true story. Now this guy probably liked his job, so maybe forget what I'm telling you now. But this dude's job, and I'm kidding you not, was to fly all over the world. Yeah, remember this guy? I don't remember his name. He was a single guy. Mm-hmm. He was a good-looking guy. Mm-hmm. And his only job was to source lace, elastic, and basically the materials that Victoria's Secret used to make all their, underwear.
Yeah.
And that was his job. And so he would basically fly all over the world and have to essentially meet with people to sell them lace, and then he'd have to go and see if the lace, what it actually looked like and how it actually looked on the human. And so his whole life was nothing but wall-to-wall lace and lacy.
He was basically a materials and fabric sourcer for lingerie.
Yeah, that was his job.
Single dude, and I think he was probably in his mid-30s, maybe 40 tops.
Very, very happy man.
Yes, he was very happy.
And do you remember why he was reloading out of New Albany? You remember where he was going?
Didn't he work for Adidas?
I can't believe you remember that. Yeah. So he got a job working for Adidas.
From lace to shoelaces, I don't know.
But he was going to live in a place he wanted to live because he didn't want to live there.
Yeah,
from lace to shoelaces.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Adidas, it was Adidas. I remember.
Oh, that's right. He corrected us. Yeah.
Right, he did. Well, but anyway, the point of it being is income doesn't seem to give you the independence you want. Otherwise, people wouldn't be having to force themselves to move to places in the country just to get jobs to work at companies they probably didn't really want to work for anyway. They're doing it in pursuit of money. So what the goal should be, it seems to me, isn't just a big income, though that is important, and always try to have a big income. But the goal should definitely be to have it so that your core core personal expenses are definitely covered by passive income. Because then, to use these examples, you probably, if you were back in the 90s and you were living your best life and out in, some beach town in California, and all of a sudden your job went away and Les Wexner's trying to get you to work for him selling, I don't know, stuff for Lerner, or I don't know, whatever, right? Remember he owned that brand called Lerner?
That brand, yeah.
Or what Abercrombie and Fitch, he owned that brand too. But you have to move to, not very pleasant Columbus, Ohio. It's nice for maybe 4 months of the year, if we're being honest. Are you going to argue that point?
Anyway, moving on.
How much snow's on the ground right now?
Nothing. It's like 65.
Okay, well, so Julie's a Central Ohio defender.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's okay. Well, but the point of it is that that's what happens on the other side of basically being rich, where your money works for you. You no longer have to work for your money. You can choose where you live, what towns you communicate with. You're talking about
freedom at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, let's just stay on that as an example. How many of the people that are listening to us now are living in a world? Well, let's make it super personal. You and I moved to New Albany, and we loved all of our neighbors, and it was a wonderful place.
Yeah.
If we were rich, back then, would we have moved there and
Probably
paid the
not.
taxes and all that? No.
And there's a lot of places you can say that about, but we would go someplace warmer with less tax.
As soon as we could.
Yeah.
We moved out of Central Ohio.
Yeah.
And we moved to someplace warmer with less tax.
Yeah.
And that's what people are doing. And that's what people do once they have the financial
really
ability.
happening now.
Right.
For sure.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that happens when people are financially free, is they then have the independence to live where they want to live, around the people you guys sort of intuitively know all this. But the question that you need to ask yourselves is, if that is indeed your goal, to be free? Now, maybe you're financially free and you stay put. Maybe you've got this perfect little oasis in the middle of, Michigan or something, where, beautiful trees and forests and your family's close, and this is just your perfect best life. It's not the same as, say, for example, Julie and I, we wanted to live on an island in the Caribbean, which we do. We live in Puerto Rico. So those are the different, whatever it is. But once you get to the point where you had that financial freedom, everything could change if you wanted it to. It doesn't have to, but it could. And that's the kind of thing that we knew that when we got married. We couldn't verbalize it like we verbalize it now, but we did understand it.
Yeah.
And that's the reason we took our abnormal path, right? Our abnormal path. And I wonder how many people listening now who can emotionally attach to that will ever give themselves permission to pursue it.
Well, write us some emails as you're doing it. We like to hear victory stories and making those decisions. But here, the saying that the fastest
way, honestly, the fastest way for them to do it, if you were to, and I know that's what you're about to talk about, right? We want to create a solution for them, right?
Yes.
We've created
something practical.
We've created tension and pain. Here's
now the resolution.
Right. I wouldn't buy rental properties, would you?
Not now.
No.
They're too hard to find, too expensive, and the rents are not keeping up with the prices.
All right, let's give that as an example. So I was on Realtor.com this morning, and I basically couldn't believe it, but there was a house on our first street of East Jeffrey that, what did I tell you, $335,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And that in the same house, basically the same house in the same street, and we did not get married back when everything was black and white.
No. So you ask me that sometimes.
I know.
Did you have color when you were a kid?
We got married in 91, and we bought our first house probably in 92. And that house was, what did we pay for it? $67,000?
$70,575.
Okay, so back then, if we would have bought that house for cash, we would have rented out, and you would have been able to make easily $450 net on that thing, easily. Which, if you did the math on that in your head, that's a really good return on investment.
Yeah.
Now, if you bought said property now for $335,000, and
most you could get for that's probably $1,300,
and that's before taxes.
Yeah, and upkeep and all the
rest. And upkeep.
Yeah.
So you're going to net, if you're lucky, $1,000 a month.
And that's on a normal house with no HOA or add-ons or some of the things these guys have to deal with.
Right. Yeah. And that's the way most of the country is.
Yeah.
The average sale price of a home right now in the United States is like $350,000, which is incredible, really. And if you buy one of those, even if you pay cash for it, to Julie's point, you're not going to be making a very good cash-on-cash investment.
You're not.
Now, for some of you guys are going to say, well, Tim, that's the reason you don't pay cash. You finance it. Okay, and then you put down $50,000 on that house, and then look at the return on investment you're making on your $50,000 until the tenant stops paying the rent, and then you have to start making the mortgage payment, and there goes your investment thesis.
Yep.
So these investor types that are constantly telling you to, lever up one property against another, dominoes basically.
Yeah, how'd that go in the housing crash?
It's dumb, guys. It's not a smart idea if you want to create financial security for yourself. It's focusing on the wrong thing. You're focusing on the accumulation of assets. You're not focusing on the accumulation of net income or passive income. There is a huge difference in the philosophies and the approaches you take. Now, the guy and gal that ladders from one property to the next and is borrowing against one from the other, they will end up with more assets than, say, for example, Julie and I would, but they won't end up with more net income. And even if they did have more gross revenue coming in from all their assets, as soon as the interest rates change, or as soon as you could have a high concentration of properties around a particular geographic area, and that particular geographic area goes into its own little mini recession, then all of a sudden those properties, the rents drop, and then all of a sudden the tenants don't live there anymore, and now you're having to support payments on 10, 15, 20 different properties.
Well, I mean, all you need is more inventory to change everything.
Exactly. And so, and then you look at the government coming out and trying to basically push its way into how you manage properties. No rent, eviction moratoriums, and all these other different forms of, in Texas where we have properties. I'm following the story, but it looks like pretty much every town in Texas is going to try to dramatically raise property taxes to make up for revenue shortfalls that came as a result of people not spending money because of COVID. And this is going to continue to happen. Oh, Tim, you're not knowing about the VRBO thing. Well, let's talk about that. How many cities where VRBOs have become really dominant have now made it so that you can't rent someplace for a short period of time, or you have to, like even in Columbus, Ohio, we got a notice, and this was bizarre. We thought it was a scam where they were asking us to register our rentals. Like what? Why would what?
And if you don't, then an automatic penalty would be attached to your property tax.
Right. So why are they doing that? Why would they want in Columbus, Ohio, where there is no VRBO market?
Not really.
Why would they want us to register our rentals? Well, there is only one damn reason, and the answer is obviously it's because they're going to start trying to figure out a way to charge property owners, landlords, some kind of added tax. And I'll tell you right now what we're going to do. We're going to raise rents to cover the tax.
Absolutely.
But this whole thing, is just essentially the destruction of what was our original thesis as far as how to be rich, where our money is working for us and we're no longer working for our money. To which, full circle is the reason. And we could talk about multifamilies and all that stuff, but let's not. Let's just focus on this. What's the quickest way for you to create the most passive income with the least risk? It is revenue share with EXP, full stop.
Absolutely.
That's it.
There's not even an alternative. Not that I'm aware of.
No, you got to sell real estate. You have to learn to sell real estate at a high level.
But you have to do those things anyway.
Right. You have to be, financially prudent. You should probably pick up some rental properties. All these things are still part of your overall investment plan. But if the question is how do I create the most passive income the quickest? For real estate agents, for dummies like all of us, I've never seen anything as good as EXP revenue share.
Well, the simple fact is that if you're with anybody except EXP, you're making money one way, and that is just simply your commission. That's it. It's easy math to figure out. When you're with EXP doing the same amount of real estate transactions, 6 or 7 different ways. So, I mean, that alone is pretty basic math.
So I thought of a really good analogy. I haven't told this to you yet. Okay. Actually, I wrote it down. I was going to make it perfect. So this is going to be kind of,
First run, okay.
Okay, first run.
Draft.
Okay. So I want you to imagine a box full of turtles.
Oh, I saw you jot down something called a turtle
It's
story.
right there. You saw my notes.
Yep. Okay, box full of turtles.
I've been working on this because I like the idea. So a box for turtles. And let's say there's one turtle. Let's call him Boss Turtle.
Boss Turtle.
Boss Turtle. You can see him, right? Right. First time saying this out loud. Okay. This is all going from my thoughts, right? And so the whole bunch of turtles in this box, and Boss Turtle says, you know what? We need to get together so that all of us, I just put it all together in my head. This is really good. So we can all escape from this box. But here's how it's got to work. I want all of you, remember this is Boss Turtle, I want all of you to, I'm wondering now as I'm doing Boss Turtle voice, why is it sounds different than mine? You notice how I'm trying to give him a voice?
Maybe it's okay. It's under development.
Maybe I should give Boss Turtle a different voice.
Don't make me have to go get Zoe.
But isn't it funny?
It is.
Yeah. My storytelling
Boss
voice,
Turtle.
evidently for Boss Turtle, is that one.
Yeah.
All right. I'll give him, you know what? I'll give him a slight country slang. Okay. I'll give him our Texas slang. So I want all of you. Is that? I don't know. Yeah.
That's preacher voice.
Yeah. I want all of you to go ahead and stand on top of each other. So Barney, you're first. Bob, you're next. Poor Bob. Steve, you're after that. Betty, all of you guys go and get on top of each other. One turtle on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other. And they all start doing it. He's Boss Turtle after all, and he's going to go to the top. And Boss Turtle's premise was, I need to climb on top of all of you so that I can get to the top, so I can then decide, I can then tell all the rest of us how we're finally all going to escape from this box. Mm-hmm. So Boss Turtle then has, he has like 10 of them stacked. There's like 30 of them in this box, and he has 10 of them stacked on top of each other. So like 10 of them stacked on top of each other. He then slowly climbs to the top. Obviously the turtles in the bottom are getting smashed, and Boss Turtle gets to the top. And then, Boss Turtle, the turtles in the bottom, like the bottom 5 turtles, they were under, a lot of duress. Their shells are starting to creak. Not a good day for those guys. Then Boss Turtle gets to the top and he goes, you know what? I still can't see at the top. He got on his back. Are they called feet?
Claws. Feet.
Claws.
Yeah.
He got on his back claws, and he's trying to scratch at the top of the box to peek over the edge. He can't see over the edge. And so Boss Turtle then climbs slowly to the bottom, and then he orders or, asks or suggests, 10 more turtles get on top. And so 10 more turtles get on top. And then he crawls back up again. Now, of course, Betty, Bob, and Steve at the bottom at this point can barely breathe. They're getting smashed. It's not just the 3 of them. It's now the bottom 10 that are all getting smashed. And then he finally crawls up at the top. And then he can see outside of the box. And he can see out of the box. And all these turtles underneath him, they can't see out of the box. The guys at the bottom are the ones that got smashed and are dying. The guys that are maybe the next third up, they're still alive, but they're not very comfortable. The ones at the top, they've only got maybe 5 or 6 turtles, or 4 to 5 turtles on top of them. So they might actually have a chance of escaping, but at the very least, they're not getting smashed in this huge, turtle wall that Boss Turtle had formed. And so what does Boss Turtle when he gets to the top? He flips himself out of the box and he walks away and he's free. You like that?
That's good.
Okay, now here's the analogy. Mm-hmm. And this is because I thought of this because I'm trying to figure out an easy way to explain revenue share. Mm-hmm. Did you see where I was going?
I think so.
Okay, so what in the brokerage business, in the traditional, especially franchise brokerage business, the agents are the turtles that are at the bottom that are getting smashed. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the bosses and the sub-bosses, the office managers, and maybe the franchise holders, they're the turtles in the middle. They're still getting smashed, but they're not getting smashed as much as the ones at the bottom. And then the ones at the very top, those are the ones that own the regions, and they're the ones that work in corporate office. They're the ones that are getting an exponential, a disproportionate amount of the blood, sweat, and tears of especially the turtles at the bottom. But it's important to remember the system, Big Boss Turtle's idea was predicated on those bottom turtles being willing to stand there while all these other turtles stand on their backs and smash them to bits. Mm-hmm. And so his only way of escaping from the box was by essentially allowing the turtles below him to suffer. That's the real estate brokerage business, especially in a franchise model.
Yeah, and it can look like we're all working together, but in fact, the ones on the bottom are turning to turtle soup.
And they didn't realize they were at the bottom until it was too late. They didn't realize they were at the bottom until they were getting smashed.
Well, and the ones in the middle used to be at the top.
No. Well,
and then you pile turtles on top.
You're messing up my story. But the point is that the further down the turtle pile you are, obviously the less chance you have of being free, and the more flattened you are. Mm-hmm. And the middle group, they're still getting flattened, but they're going to probably live. But the ones at the top have the best chance of escaping. And then Boss Turtles, he's already gone.
And he's the only one that got over the edge.
And Boss Turtles headed back to the lake, right? So all those little 7-year-olds, all Zoe's buddies who are picking up turtles and putting them in a box, they all escape. But only the ones at the top escape. Guys, that's life. I just described it succinctly, I think. Mm-hmm. So what do you think? Good story?
I like it. It's good.
I'm going to work on it.
Gotta give Bob his turtle voice.
I'm smashing! I'm getting smashed! Help me! I'll work on something. Yeah. And no, we're not drinking anything right now. This is us completely sober. Yeah. So but that's the thing. I got to thinking about. So I'll talk to somebody about EXP revenue share sometimes, and they're like so screwed up in their head about the idea that they're going to be making money off agents that eventually come into their revenue share groups. And I'm like, first of all, the money doesn't come from them. It comes from their cap. So it's not like they're actually paying you.
It's the company dollar. It's not from the agent.
Right. It's not.
You are not screwing agents over in any way.
Nope.
And Quite the opposite.
And I wouldn't have said screwing over either.
But some of them think that.
Right. They're not making, your revenue share does not come from the agents. Your revenue share comes from EXP's portion. You're getting a portion of their cap. That's where it comes from. That's number one.
Yes.
So, and number two is you're caught in that paradigm of essentially you're most likely an agent, or maybe you're in that middle group, but you are getting smashed and you don't really realize it. And most times you might even be surrounded by other turtles you like. You might even be in a nice turtle box, right? And no one ever stops to think, well, maybe there's something better if I finally climbed to the top and looked over the edge and I could actually be free and get back to the lake. And that's what happens with a lot of you guys, is that you just stay in the middle of the pile or the bottom of the pile for your entire lives, slowly getting smashed. And when you start to have your shell completely break, that's the disillusionment of your soul, really. That's you letting loose and letting go of your goals, any sense of self. You just essentially start to relinquish what could have been your potential just to stay in the pile.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to go that way, and you don't have to wait for your shell to start to crack to make a decision.
And furthermore, there's no too young or too old with this scenario.
Absolutely, there's not. Yeah. I think that's one of the most amazing things is, it is not too late. You could be an agent in your 60s or 70s and this is going to work for you.
Totally.
Because it works very quickly.
Very quickly. Well, you do have to make some effort. You do have to choose the right sponsor, someone that's going to help you sponsor other people. You do want to be...
That makes a difference.
You do want to be in the right environment, so you're going to be around other people that are also trying to escape from said box.
Yeah, same mindset.
Because a lot of times you're going to have people that are stuck in the box happily. Mm-hmm. They don't realize
That's true.
And statistically, it plays out, too, because if you look at, for example, the statistic that 95% of everyone is born and raised in the same 25-mile radius of the exact same spot.
Yeah.
Social Security Administration statistic. I'm sure that's still true. But yeah, when you look at and I'm not judging, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I mean, whatever. Don't misunderstand what we're saying. Keys to happiness isn't necessarily moving from where you live now, but having the ability to basically move from where you live now if you wanted to, and not being beholden to a geographic area because that's where you have to earn money.
It's freedom of everything.
It is.
Freedom of maybe where you live has to do with, maybe you're in a really old house and you're just sick of these repairs and you'd love to buy new construction. It could be that kind of freedom. It could be, you keep on nurturing your car that's got 150,000 miles on it and you think you're supposed to be doing that. Freedom to make these choices. Now, you may decide to keep that car, but you have the freedom to do something about it.
I like things that's very practical, but I think about your parents, to be honest with you. Your parents are both school teachers, and for the most part, conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now they're retired school teachers living off their school teacher pension.
Right.
They have to feel, and they're in their 80s, 70, 80s, they have to feel some level of disillusionment with the NEA, because a lot of the things that are happening right now, essentially with the socialization of a lot of these institutions, right?
Yeah.
They have to feel conflicted and they have to feel pressure to somehow change. Like, they're probably not liking at all what's happening with a lot of the traditional values they had with regards to education.
I'm sure.
Your parents were not, slackers when it came to their jobs. And I'm not saying teachers now are, but like, for example, I bet you if we were to ask your parents what their attitudes are towards teachers wanting to not go back to school, even after COVID shots and everything been in place, I cannot imagine that they would think that was really, those people are out of alignment with, their missions, which were supposedly to help kids,
I know.
And so I wonder, like, for example, people like that are caught in those paradigms where your financial security, your literal ability to feed your family, you have to belong to this little professional organization. Right. And if you step outside those norms, you'll be ostracized and you might lose your job, and there goes your financial security.
Yeah, and a lot of your friends are at that job and there's reinforcements there. So
right, exactly.
You become conflicted.
Right. Well, how about this? Even your friends. Do you just choose friends because you happen to be a teacher living in Columbus, Ohio, and so the people that are also, you want to support your position in the hierarchy. So maybe you choose friends that are also in the same hierarchy that now you're spending your free time with people that you wouldn't normally. Well, we don't. Now you're spending your free time with people that you wouldn't normally spend your free time with. Yeah. Because you're trying to better your position in this tribe, in essence.
Well, so the saying is, when you generate, as in profit, as the result of helping enough people at the highest level, you don't have to tolerate some of the decisions that you're making just because you've fallen into that clan, right? When you generate, you don't have to tolerate feast and famine of real estate. You don't have to tolerate not living where you want, living where you don't want to live, driving what you don't want to drive, making decisions, maybe even political stuff or who your friends are. When you generate, everything opens up, right? When you have that freedom where your money is working for you and you're no longer working for it. In other words, freedom to make those decisions. At least you'll have the freedom to make it. We're not telling you what to do with it. We're just saying free yourself to be able to make some choices.
Well, I didn't know you'd done this, but evidently we're feeding a village in the Philippines.
Yes. Well, I don't know about the whole village, but the orphans in the village anyway.
Were those the orphans?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yep.
So we had fed that same village before because I got in another picture and they weren't kids. They were older people. Oh. Yeah.
Could be
so anyway, we got this video. We put it on Facebook. I think I also put it on Instagram of this big group of kids singing "Happy Birthday" to Aunt Julie.
I know, it was awesome.
Yeah, and it was totally unexpected. So this big orphanage evidently of children who we had fed. I don't know, I don't know anything other than that. But
we provided pillows and I think some clothing and stuff like that. Yeah.
But I bet you
I love doing stuff like that.
It was thousands, not tens of thousands, And doing things like that, and you see the direct result of that, it's like that is something that we want to do more of, right?
Absolutely.
And we are doing more of in all sorts of different ways. And that's the freedom that you can start having once you have. But the first things first is you got to be unconflicted with regards to your profit motive. Being profit motivated and wanting to make yourself rich is your moral imperative. And the reason is because you need to make yourself not beholden to money as fast as humanly possible so then you can start doing more extraordinary things with your life. So don't think money is evil. The lack of money is perhaps evil because the lack of money does not allow you ever to be free. Once free, every single one of you, unless you're a sociopath, is going to do more miraculous things with your life than you ever will be able to as long as you're having to basically work for a living, in essence.
Absolutely.
I think
that's a good way to
Do you like my turtle story?
I do.
Yeah.
I like that.
You can take that to a lot of different facets of life too. Yeah. Turtles
in a
box. Mm-hmm. We live by a big lake.
With some really big turtles.
With some really big turtles. Exactly.
They love eating shrimp.
How big of turtles? So, true story, we're going on a walk and we walk past this big lake and there's this medium-sized turtle that is eating a full-size iguana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Head first.
Yeah.
Ew. That was so gross. But that gives you an idea about the size of these turtles and how hungry they are.
Actually, you know what?
Definitely don't want to fall into that pond.
But that tells me something else, too.
What?
What the hell kind of turtles are those?
Hungry? I don't know.
Hungry, yeah, but they're not eating like...
No, I know. You'd think it would just be all bugs and stuff. But
that's my point. Those must be snapping turtles.
I think those are something
carnivorous
pretty
turtles.
Serious.
Yeah.
I know. So I don't even know what else is in that lake. I've seen some huge fish there, too.
Mental note, do not swim in that flipping lake.
Do not even stick your toe.
Do not swim?
No. Well, it is kind of funny. Isn't that's near where they said the alligator was found also? So it's a little survival of the fittest right here.
Occasionally.
If you're not feeling motivated, go for a jog in Puerto Rico.
Well, that is true.
You'll run faster.
It was just 6 doors down. Julie and I live in this villa, and it's basically like a 5-minute walk to the beach. And so there are no there's not supposed to be any alligators or any crocodiles or anything
indigenous
here. So no one really knows how they get here. Maybe someone brought them in as a pet, but good luck getting that through the airport.
Not anymore.
So what people believe is they come in as eggs, obviously, when there's storms and whatever from adjacent islands or whatever. So you will hear once or twice a year, you'll hear a story about some big damn alligator that, and I don't know how these things grow to be so big with essentially nobody noticing.
Just because they don't have any predators.
Well, yeah, they're chowing down on the iguanas and the turtles. But so 6 doors down from us, we didn't see it, but we heard about it, that there was he was 6 or 7 feet long alligator that was just some dude's yard.
Yeah.
And here's what I thought.
That we walk past every day.
Right, we do. And Zoe does too. But here's what I thought when I thought that story.
What?
There must be some point in an alligator's life where he goes, F you, world. I'm not hiding anymore.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm 6 feet. Me. I'm 6 feet now. This is the.
I know.
The shoe is on the other foot. I'm not running, hiding, scared anymore.
I'm much more careful on that walk now.
I know. Yeah. He was out in the daylight.
Yes, I know.
He was
I know.
sunning.
Well, don't forget. When I was taking Zoe to school one day, and I stopped at the stoplight, and I'm checking my messages, and the school sent out an alert. Just so you know, there's a 6 to 7 foot alligator down there by the pond. So we park there.
The school is 15 minutes away from our house. Yeah. And I'll paint this picture. There's this pond, and around this pond, there's basically where the parents have to park to pick up their kids. There's no like drive-through thing. You have to get at park, get out, walk up, So there's this big pond, and a lot of the kids and little kids like Zoe's age, one of the things they'll do is they'll go down and they'll fish after school, sometimes with their parents. And so all these cars surrounded by all these kids is where it looks like maybe once a year where they seem to find an alligator in that damn pond.
I know. So for 2 or 3 weeks, I wasn't parking down there. But the funny thing is this was only 4 months after we moved here or so, because it was before
And you thought
COVID.
It was a joke.
And, it was one of those weeks where it's like, really, there's roosters outside of Walgreens, and you're kind of acclimating, and then we had the earthquakes. And so I checked this message. I'm like, no way. This is a prank. And I'm like looking at the calendar. Is it April Fool's? And it was close to that. So I sent it to our friend Cindy, and she's like, oh, yeah, it's real. Happens 2 or 3 times a year. She goes, you better have a fast kid or park somewhere else.
But it was funny, too, the way the school announced it. It was
very happenstance.
It was like 3 announcements. It was like, tomorrow the lunch is, spaghetti. And, soccer practice starts at 3. Announcement 2, there's a 20-foot long alligator that's basically waiting to kill you and your family. Point number 3, will be no school on Friday for
it's very normal. Just thrown in there.
That was the funny part.
I should have kept that.
They slipped it in a text.
They totally did. Full disclosure, right? We told you.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we forgot. If you guys want to talk to us about joining EXP, we would love the opportunity to be your sponsor. Just text us directly at 512-758-0206. 512-758-0206. EXP is perfect for a brand new agent, really great for an agent, especially we're speaking to, I think, the Midland agents or those of you who are relating to our story, those of you who have production, those of you who are selling homes, but you're not moving the financial ball down the field like you would hope to, and maybe you're starting to think about that feeling of being financially free. Guys, you got to take a hard look at this. You're doing yourself a huge disservice for not doing it. Start by texting us at 512-758-0206, and let's start that conversation. And again, remember, this was our Sunday podcast. This is us talking about whatever comes to mind. Our normal daily scheduled podcast that's made this podcast the #1 listened to daily podcast for real estate agents in the world. I laugh as I say that because this is the first podcast you've listened to. You think Julie and I are probably nuts.
We tried to warn you.
Which we might be. Yeah. This is what happens from talking to realtors this long. You lose.
This is what happens to you.
Exactly. Or when you think you're 35 for the 15th time. But whatever.
It's okay.
That's right. It's a state of mind.
It is.
Yeah. But if you guys want to talk to us about joining our EXP group, we'd love to talk with you. 512-758-0206. 512-758-0206. In the meantime, we are Clubhouse event, and we talk about Clubhouse a lot, probably too much in the past week, because we really do think it's pretty amazing, the communication and conversations that are happening on Clubhouse. But if you'd like to join our Clubhouse event every morning, it's, of course, free. It's on the Clubhouse app, available to most iPhone users. Most in that you have to get an invitation. But it's called Real Estate Coaching. You can find us there every morning at 8 a.m. East Coast time, along with a lot of other coaches and top producing agents, by the way. It's not just Julie and I. We're doing essentially like a mastermind amongst other people. And join us for that. And obviously the podcast every single day. Thank you for keeping this the #1 daily listen to podcast for agents in at least the United States. And thank you for your support of Harris Rules, our book. We're beyond thrilled that so many of you guys are totally getting the message in that book and understanding the rules and the messages. Sometimes you guys, you think that we take for granted your appreciation, especially when you email us and text us. You think that we don't read them, or you think we don't, I don't know. It doesn't mean something to us. It really does. And when you guys give us, I just want you to know we're never too big. It helps you too. If we said something or done something that's made your life better, the best way for you to pay that back, yes, thanking us directly is great, is you should go to Google My Business, or you should go to iTunes, and you should go to Amazon and write your own book review. 450 5-star reviews of our book now. You should say what you learned from it and how it benefited you, because then not only are you thanking Julie and I, but then you're also helping somebody else, right? So you may say, I just listened to Tim and Julie ramble on for, however long, talking about, I think it was, being financially free. I'm not really sure, but this is what I learned from it. This is what I felt as a result of it. You guys, this is maybe your iTunes review. 5 stars, this is why you should listen to it, whatever. You don't know who's going to be reading that and what your words might mean to them at the time in which they're, I told a story on Clubhouse the other day of an experience I had with my father. And I got an incredibly emotional email from somebody the next day. Did I tell you about that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was a direct, I didn't even think of the ramifications of the story. I was just completely being transparent with this experience I had. And that helped somebody. And I'm thrilled that that helped somebody. And so that's the thing. When you guys start thinking of yourselves as you could actually be more influential and more impactful in somebody else's life by just doing like the little things I just suggested. So yes, thank you for all the birthday wishes and all the gratitude and all those direct messages. But if you really want to if you really want to give us praise and at the same time help other people, please do it on iTunes, on Google My Business, on all the places where you can then have an influence on other people. Does that make sense, Julie?
Absolutely. So don't keep it to yourself. Share with your colleagues, help each other. You guys are all going through various real estate struggles with a hot seller's market and knock down, drag out on your offers. Put a positive light, help each other, bring up the industry one transaction at a time, one post at a time, be supportive. Like Tim said, you never know who you're going to help.
I've heard a lot of you using the word movement associated with what Julie and I are talking about. And the funny thing is movements are usually something like a political movement or a social movement. It's something that just gets started and basically starts to, maybe it has a 12-month or a 24-month life. I mean, we've been doing this for 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. So if you want to call a 20 plus year effort of saying, mostly the same things.
Maybe it's an era at this point. I don't know.
But we appreciate it, guys. And I think really what we're doing, based on what I'm hearing you guys say, is we're helping all of you guys reconnect yourselves with why you originally got into real estate, and you're rejecting now all the things that basically maybe came into your life that manipulated you away from what your original goal. And all of you, if you really drilled down on it, it's helping people, it's building a business, it's being proud of yourself, it's selling houses because you love it and all that. But really, if you cut through all of it, what you're truly searching for is freedom. Financial freedom, primarily. And that's the thing that's easiest to achieve, by the way. Financial freedom is the easiest thing to achieve. Financial freedom is easier to achieve than even being in great physical health by a lot. Okay? You don't think it is, but it is. And so stay attached to stay attached to the emotions that you feel from the idea of being financially free. And that emotion will then manifest itself into the strongest sense of desire that you could ever have. It really does. And that's where I strongly hope all of you would start tuning your dial and start tuning away from the ego branding stuff and tuning away from the buying leads and tuning away from the building of teams and tuning away from all these things that are keeping you in a position where you're one of the bottom turtles always getting smashed.
Yeah, so make your commitment to not be that bottom turtle. Write down 2 or 3 things. Don't just stop listening and say, well, that was entertaining. Do something about it. 2 or 3 things that you're going to take action on immediately.
You assume they were listening thinking it was entertaining.
Hopefully it was at least that.
And again, if you guys want to get hold of us, it's 512-758-0206. Have a fantastic day. Back to regular scheduled programming tomorrow.